All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Great to see you. Great to be here with you all. So, what comes to mind when you think of four numbers? Okay. When you think of four numbers that are put together, I want you to just think what comes to your mind. When you hear 2019, what comes to mind? Just doesn't it almost seem like we lived in a different world? Just a different time. It was just we saw things differently. I felt like maybe we were a little naive, or we've been through some stuff through 2019. Is that correct? We have. Well, when I think of 2019, which is pre-2020. I think of all the changes that have happened in our world, and I think of all the changes that have happened in our church. I think of all the changes that have happened in our lives. You can look back at a time where things were different, and we live in a different kind of setting and environment than we did in 2019. When I think about our church in 2019, of September 2019, August 2019. We got a letter from BMU Movie Theater saying, hey, thanks for being here, go away, pretty much. And so we had kind of sensed that there was a change in leadership there, and we had kind of sensed over the previous few months, we kind of saw that coming, and so we weren't really surprised. We'd been looking around. We'd actually made an offer on some retail space on Wentzville Parkway that wasn't God's will, and we're looking at a church that had merged and closed, and there was a building available down on Pierce on Wentzville. We were looking at the old firehouse and saying, boy, could we afford that? How would that work? God, what do you want us to do? Where do you want us to go? God, we're looking our eyes to you to see. And so that summer was the first year our students had ever attended Passion Camp. And at Passion Camp, there was a song that just resonated with our youth group. We just sang, I witnessed it. This year, I would say that's probably one of the songs at Passion Camp that really resonated with our group that was there. But in 2019, the song was Follow You Anywhere. And in that song, part of the chorus goes, I'll go wherever you lead me, whatever it costs me, all I want is you. So wherever you lead me, whatever it costs me, all I want is you. And so that song really resonated. So we moved back from the movie theater, back to the middle school, Wentzville South Middle School, from the movie theater. We were really just praying and saying, God, what do you have for us? We're looking, we're searching, we're praying. And we began this series called Follow You Anywhere. And it was through the eyes and the lens of the Israelites, picking up from when they left slavery in Egypt, crossed the Red Sea, and we kind of picked it up there. And as they traveled toward Sinai and being led by a cloud by day and a fire by night, we talked about just our church, and we talked about our lives of how do we follow God wherever He leads us, whatever it costs us. And it's funny because so we got through that series, and just as it ended, I got this call from a friend named Brent Campbell saying, hey, there's a church in New Melly that their pastor just resigned, and they're trying to process where God is leading them. And I wonder if maybe God is leading you and God is leading them to join hands. And here we are, praise God. And so, but it was cool, absolutely, praise God. But it's amazing to me because when we were talking, we were looking at different properties in Wentzville. Nobody said, hey, what about New Melly? Hey, nobody's like, hey, I think, what about this possibility? We didn't know, and it's kind of neat to see in times in our lives where God goes before you, and He's preparing you, and He's preparing a situation that you have no idea what He's getting ready to do, but He's already clearly went ahead of you. And it was amazing to me in that we started to Follow You Anywhere, not having a clue that might be New Melly. I remember we had our fall party at Holly's house was just a couple miles from here, and it was pretty neat. And so it's kind of funny because sometimes in life, if we're looking and paying attention, we're going to see that there are times, lots of times, whether we realize it or not, there's lots of times God goes ahead of us. God's preparing us. God's working in a way that we can't see it yet, but if we're paying attention, we'll see it. We'll see, oh, wow, look at what God was doing. And I think about how God was preparing us in September for this phone call I got from Brent in November, and then how God was preparing us as a church in November for what was getting ready to happen in March. Because the day that we had set aside to vote, both churches vote on coming together to become one church, was the day everything shut down. And we had planned to take a vote. We planned to do this. And our vote had to go online because we weren't able to gather together. And we began this journey of COVID. The whole world began this journey of COVID. And what happened at Wentzville South Middle School is that outside groups weren't allowed to rent their building for almost 2 years. And had God not gone ahead of us in November, I'm not sure what would have happened in March. The people weren't looking for outside groups to come in and use their space. We would have been filming from my basement. And yet God allowed it and so orchestrated. He went ahead of us that we were able to film and do online services for a couple of months. Then we met outside for about 5 months and then gathered and had space to have a service at 9 o'clock for those who really wanted to wear masks and wanted everyone to be wearing masks, and another service at 10:45 for those who wanted masks to be optional. And just, it was amazing to see how God went ahead of us in September to prepare us for November, and then went ahead of us in November to prepare us for March. Because honestly, I don't know what we would have done. And it's like that in our lives. That when we come to God and say, God, I'll go wherever you want me to go. And I'll do whatever you want me to do. Wherever you lead me, whatever it costs me, I'll follow you anywhere. And so as I was praying for this next series, really felt led to go back to, this is Follow You Anywhere, Volume 2. And instead of picking it up right after the Israelites crossed the Red Sea, we're going to pick it up back much further. And instead of this next 4 or 5 weeks, instead of looking at all of this through the eyes and the lens of the Israelites, we're going to look through the eyes and the lens of Moses. And I think as we do this for the next few weeks, we're going to learn a lot about us following. As a church, God, wherever you lead, that's where we want to go. Whatever you want us to do, that's what we want to do. This is yours. We want to do that. But also talking about living our lives with an attitude, a mindset of saying, God, whatever you're calling me to do, that's what I want to do. Wherever you're calling me to go, that's where I want to go. My life is your life. All I want is you. All I want is what you want. So as I was praying about it, I talked to Ben about it a little bit, that I almost went with the series titled Open Hands, of living life with open hands. Saying, God, this is all yours. I'm all yours. And so I surrender my life into your leading. God, I trust you that you can do a better job with my life than I can do with myself. God, I trust you that if I follow you, you're going to take care of me. And God, I trust you that as I live a life, this is, God, whatever you want for me, that's what I want for me. Whatever you want for my family, that's what I want for my family. Whatever you want for my money, that's what I want for my money. Whatever you want with my calendar and schedule, that's what I want. And living a life with open hands and saying, God, I'm yours. Lead me. Shape me. Provide for me. Protect me. And God, use me. So if you have your Bibles this morning, you can pick it up in Exodus chapter 3. So we're going to start much sooner in the story than we did. Back in September of 2019. Exodus chapter 3, verse 1. One day, Moses was tending the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian. He led the flock far into the wilderness and came to Sinai, the mountain of God. So here we are, we're picking up, where's Moses? What's Moses doing? He's a shepherd in the desert, in the wilderness of Midian. Moses is living a pretty laid-back kind of life. He's married, he has children. He's actually 80 years old at this point. He lives 120 years, a very full 120 years. But at 80, what are you thinking about the rest of your life? Just got to hang out with my dad this weekend, and he just had his 80th birthday. Sorry, Dad, that I just told everybody you're now 80, but when you're thinking about what's next for you or what God has for you, here's Moses, at the age of 80, taking care of sheep very far away from Israel, very far away from Egypt. He's just tending the flock. And as we think about Moses' journey, what led him to that point at age 80, you can look back and see some pretty amazing things. And we talk about what's the journey God has for us. And what's the journey He's leading each of us in our lives. Had the privilege this summer in June to serve at a camp called Super Summer, that it was such an honor because Super Summer is what God used to change my life when I was 13. And it was neat just to kind of see how God works. When you look at Moses' life, it starts off that his people, the Israelites, are slaves in Egypt and have been slaves for Egypt for about 400 years. The Israelites, when you leave the end of Genesis, there's a famine. God raises up Joseph. He's second in command of Pharaoh. He rescues all the Israelites. Says, hey, all of you guys, come live in Egypt. Pharaoh's giving you the best of land. Let's live here. There's food here. We'll be safe here. This is how God has delivered us from dying from famine. Then we pick it up in Exodus chapter 1, it's a different story. Instead of living under the protection in a fertile land in Egypt under the protection of Pharaoh, that Pharaoh dies, a new Pharaoh rises to power, and he's looking what's happening in the land of Egypt, and he says, wow, these Israelite people, they are multiplying and multiplying and multiplying and multiplying, and if somebody comes to attack us, we're very vulnerable that if the Israelites join them, they're going to wipe us out. So this is what we need to do. We need to make them our slaves and treat them harshly because they're a threat to us otherwise. So Moses is born during this time, and the Israelites are just multiplying so much that the Pharaoh issues a decree that all of the baby boys, when they're born, have to be killed. Very similar to the time when Jesus was born. Go again, Jesus is born. Go kill all the babies, all the baby boys 2 and under. And so Moses is born. His mom looks at him and says, "Wow, there's something special about this boy." Every mom says that, but I wonder if this is maybe even a little different. And she sees God's hand on him. She says, I can't. And so she hid him for 3 months, and she couldn't hide him anymore. And so she makes this basket out of reeds and put some tar in it and different things he would say. And she puts the baby in the Nile River to let it float down, tells Moses' big sister, hey, go watch to see what happens. And baby Moses is floating down in this little bitty canoe. And the Pharaoh's daughter, the princess of Egypt, sees the baby and says, wow, this is one of the Israelite babies. I'm going to take him home and raise him. And so Moses' older sister says, well, would you like me to find one of the Israelite women to nurse him until he's weaned? Oh, yeah, that would be great. And so they take her back to Moses' mother so she gets a little more time with him. And then it's Moses' time to grow up in the palace. And for the first 40 years of Moses' life, he lives in the palace as a prince of the Pharaoh of Egypt, the most powerful man on the face of the planet. And this is the home, this is the environment that Moses is growing up in. But he knows he's an Israelite. He knows he's a Jew. And he looks at his people and sees how they're being treated, knowing that that's his heritage, but he's living a far different life, one of privilege. And so he then walks upon and he sees an Egyptian mistreating an Israelite, and he gets filled with anger, and so he not only stops it, but he kills the Egyptian and buries his body in the sand. And so comes back around shortly after, and he sees two Israelites fighting with each other. And Moses is like, hey, why are you guys, what are you doing? Why are you brothers? Why are you fighting? And the Israelites look at him and say, who are you to be our judge? What do you have any say? It's like, stay out of our business. Are you going to kill us like you killed the Egyptian? And Moses is like, my secret is not a secret. I better get out of town. And so at the age of 40, Moses flees Egypt and ends up in the land of Midian. And there he meets his wife, he begins a family, and he lives there in quietness for 40 years. He's got a family. He's taking care of sheep. He's kind of like, I got to imagine if I'm Moses living this quiet life for the last 40 years, you're now age 80, you're kind of thinking about, I'm just going to sail out into the sunset and maybe I'll move to the beach when I retire, or at least go there for the winters, or what am I going to do? And then here in Exodus chapter 3, we're going to see that God wasn't quite done with Moses yet. That Moses' journey wasn't just a river and a palace and a shepherd, but God had more for him, just as though he has more for us. Let's pick it up here in verse 2. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a blazing fire from the middle of a bush. Moses stared in amazement, though the bush was engulfed in flames. It didn't burn up. This is amazing, Moses said to himself. Why isn't that bush burning up? I must go and see it. When the Lord saw Moses coming to take a closer look, God called to him from the middle of the bush, Moses, Moses. And here I am, Moses replied. So imagine you're Moses. You're out in the middle of the field. You're taking care of the sheep just like you had done day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year for about the last 40 years. And all of a sudden you see this bush, and this bush is on fire, but is not being consumed. There's fire coming from the bush, but it's on fire. And Moses is like, what is this? I got to check it out. And as he approaches the fire starts talking to him. Just an average day, right? This happens to you all the time, right? That's normal. We call that Thursday. And the fire calls him by name, Moses, Moses. And if the fire starts talking to you, how are you going to respond? Moses is like, here I am. So it says a messenger of the Lord. Sometimes a messenger of the Lord is referred to as an angel of the Lord. And sometimes an angel is referred to a messenger of God. And sometimes it's a manifestation of God. It's God showing up on the scene, and he's saying, Moses, like if I'm thinking about it, this situation, I'd be like, Moses, you better sit down for this. Well, Moses, I've got some news for you. But that's not what he tells. He doesn't tell him to sit down. He tells him to do something up. Let's pick it up here in verse 5. Do not come any closer, the Lord warned. Take off your sandals, for you are standing on holy ground. I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. And when Moses heard this, he covered his face because he was afraid to look at God. So Moses is approaching, and God's like, hey, hold up. This is sacred space you're in, right? You don't come lightly into this space. Take off your sandals, because this is holy ground. I am the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And Moses heard this. He covered his face and he was afraid to look at God. Verse 7. Then the Lord told him, I have certainly seen the oppression of my people in Egypt. I have heard their cries of distress because of their harsh slave drivers. Yes, I am aware of their suffering, so I have come down to rescue them from the power of the Egyptians and lead them out of Egypt and into their own fertile and spacious land. It is the land flowing with milk and honey, the land where the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites now live. Look, the cry of my people of Israel has reached me, and I have seen how harshly the Egyptians have abused them. Now go, for I am sending you to Pharaoh. You must lead my people out of Egypt. And so let's look for a moment at what God is, this message the Lord has for Moses. And I'm going to read out just a few of the words that were mentioned here. And I want you to think about your life. And when you find yourself in a situation that is unsettling, maybe you're being mistreated, maybe tragedy has struck, maybe you're being consumed by anxiety or depression, or life is just really, really, really hard, and it has just been really, really hard for, it seems like, a really long time. And let's look at a few of the verses or the words that the Lord shares with Moses here as he's talking about what he's getting ready to do. Hey, I just want you to know, I have seen the oppression of my people. And I love that because I feel like it's the same thing God telling us, hey, I just want you to know, I see you. It might seem like I'm quiet. It might seem like I have forgotten you. It might seem like I don't care. But I just want you to know that whatever it is you're going through right now, I just want you to know I see you. And I've heard your cries. And I'm coming. And I'm going to rescue you. And I'm going to lead you. And for the Israelites, think of what that must have meant. We'd heard stories about the amazing God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but for the last 400 years, all we know is hard work, is being mistreated, and living as a slave at the hand of the Egyptians who are ruthless. And sometimes, when life is hard, we can feel very similarly. God, do you even see me? God, when I'm praying, do you hear my prayers? God, are you paying attention? Are you alert? Are you ever going to come? Are you going to rescue me? And God's telling, hey, this is the appointed time. I have come. I see, I hear, I'm coming. I'm going to rescue, and I'm going to lead. And that gives hope to me. That's a comfort to me. To know no matter what I go through and ever how long that season lasts, He sees. And He is going to come and He is going to rescue. Maybe not as soon as I would like. That's usually, God doesn't normally do things on our timetable. But He's coming. And so Moses, I'm going to do all this. And guess what, Moses, Mr. 80-year-old shepherd living in obscurity? I'm sending you to lead my people out of slavery and into a land flowing with milk and honey. I'm getting ready to rescue millions of people out of slavery, and I'm going to give them a home and a land of their own that is fertile and beautiful. And if you're a farmer, this is where you want to live. If you're a shepherd, this is where you want to live. If you need water, this is where you want to live. I'm going to take them from where they're at, and I'm going to deliver them in amazing ways, and I'm going to give them this promised land. And guess what, Moses? You're the man that's going to lead them out of it. Now, if you're Moses, what's your response? This is a lot to process. There is a bush that's on fire that's talking to me, and now he's revealed himself. He's God, and he's going to deliver all these millions of people out of slavery, and he's choosing me? Me? The shepherd? The murderer? The fugitive? The 80-year-old? He's choosing me? So let's look at how he responds in verse 11. But Moses protested to God. Who am I to appear before Pharaoh? Who am I to lead the people out of Israel, people of Israel out of Egypt? And God answered, I will be with you, and this is your sign that I am the one who has sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God at this very mountain, Mount Sinai. So God shows up and says, hey, Moses, got some news for you. This is what I'm going to do, and you're the man. And Moses' response is, who am I to show up at Pharaoh's door and say, let God's people go? Who am I to lead your people? And it reminds me of me. It reminds me of us. You hear God's voice, I'm going to do something great, and I want to use you to make an impact and help others. Well, who am I? And but God replies, I will be with you, and I'm going to do it, and after I've done it, and we're on the other side of this journey, you're coming right back to the same spot at Mount Sinai and worship me again. Verse 13. But Moses protested, if I go to the people of Israel and tell them the God of your ancestors has sent me to you, they will ask me, what is his name? Then what should I tell them? So when I go to them and say, hey, the God of our ancestors set us free, and they ask me, well, who is this God? What's his name? Here's God's name. God replied to Moses, I am who I am. Say this to the people of Israel. I am has sent me to you. God also said to Moses, say this to the people of Israel, Yahweh, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my eternal name, my name to be remembered for all generations. Now, generally, when we're talking about God, we call him God. When Moses asks, hey, burning bush, who are you? When they ask me your name, who are you? If I'm Moses, this is probably not the response I was expecting. But are you really expecting any of this? And the response is, you want to know who I am? You want to know my name? I am who I am. And so when you go, tell them the I am sent you. Now, the Egyptians, they had all kinds of false gods. They had the god of, even when you look at the plays, you're going to see it was an attack on different gods they had. They have the god of the frogs. They had the frog god. They had the god of the locusts. They had the god of the sun, Ra. They had the god of women, the god of fertility. They have all these different gods. And so what he's saying here is And you're familiar with this little, these little gods that have these little areas they oversee. They have different areas of responsibility to be God over. You want to know who I am? I am the all-encompassing God. When he's saying that he is the I am, it is the ultimate statement of self-sufficiency, self-existence, and being eternally constant. What God is declaring here is, I just want you to know I didn't need anyone to create me. I exist all on my own without any help from anyone else. And I am the sovereign God that can do whatever I want to do. And if I have something that I want to do, I'm going to do it regardless of any circumstance, and I don't need assistance or help from anyone. I am eternally constant. I am over everything. In Revelation, we see where Jesus says, I am the Alpha and the Omega. I'm the beginning and the end. He's saying, I am over everything. I wasn't created by anyone. I don't need anyone. I am completely self-sufficient. And I can do and accomplish whatever it is that I want to accomplish. Go tell them the I am sent you. Verse 16. Now go and call together all the elders of Israel and tell them, the Lord, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, has appeared to me. He has told me, I have been watching closely, and I see how the Egyptians are treating you. I have promised to rescue you from the oppression of Egypt. I will lead you to a land flowing with milk and honey, and the land where the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and the Jebusites now live. The elders of Israel will accept your message. Then you and the elders must go to the king of Egypt and tell him, the Lord, the God of Hebrews, has met with us, so please let us take a 3-day journey into the wilderness to offer sacrifices to the Lord our God. God says, but I know that the king of Egypt will not let you go unless a mighty hand forces him. So I will raise my hand and strike the Egyptians, performing all kinds of miracles among them. Then at last he will let you go, and I will cause the Egyptians to look favorably upon you, and they will give you gifts when you go, so that you will not leave empty-handed. Every Israelite woman will ask for articles of silver and gold and fine clothing from her Egyptian neighbors and from the foreign women in their houses. You will dress your sons and daughters with these, stripping the Egyptians of their wealth. So go, and I'm going to give you 2 messages. The first message is to go to all the elders, the leaders of Israel, and this is what I want you to say. The Lord has seen you, and he's getting ready to step into action. And he's getting ready to deliver you from slavery in Egypt, to give you a land that is of your own, that I promise you, that's flowing with milk and honey. It's unbelievable. You're going from slavery to abundance. You're going from hardship to joy. That's what I'm going to do. Then you take the elders of Israel, you go up to Pharaoh, most powerful man on the planet. You go up to Pharaoh and say, the Lord showed up and he wants us to take a 3-day journey to go worship him. And I know that Pharaoh is going to say no. And so I'm going to get his attention. And finally, through all these miraculous things that I'm going to do, Pharaoh is going to let you go. And as a matter of fact, when you go, all these people that have been enslaving you the last 400 years, the people that are mistreating you for the last 400 years, they're going to be begging you to go. And when you go, they're going to be giving you gold and silver and the finest of their clothes just so that you would leave. You're going to plunder the Egyptians on your way out. That's what I'm getting ready to do. Chapter 4, verse 1. But Moses protested. You guys heard that word protested before? But Moses protested again. What if they won't believe me or listen to me? What if they say the Lord never appeared to you? And so then he goes through, and I'll let you read this on your own. He kind of goes through and says hey, what's in your hand? Throw it on the ground. When you throw it on the ground, it'll become a snake. When you pick it back up, it'll become a staff. Show them, hey, I'm in charge. This is what I can do. And if they don't believe this, next one. Show your hand. Hey, see my hand. Put in your cloak. Pull it back out. Oh, it's covered with nasty leprosy. Get away from me. Put it back in there. Show it again. It's clean again. Who can do that? Only God. They then take some water from the Nile River and put it on the ground and watch how it turns to blood. And you're going to, this is your way of showing God's with me and God's going to do this. So let's pick it up here in verse 13. And this is where we'll stop today. But Moses again pleaded, Lord, please send anyone else. So for the next few weeks, we're going to be looking at Moses and talking about our church, but really talking just about each and every one of our lives and families. Because I think that it would describe many of us that we could say, you know what, my life right now isn't that much different than Moses' when he was a shepherd. Things were pretty quiet. I had a routine going on. Everything wasn't perfect, but I had a sense of security, of safety. Definitely, I was in a comfort zone. Things were comfortable. And I think if we were honest about our lives, I think we would probably say something very similar. I've got a routine. I've got I've got safety. Things aren't perfect, but this is kind of where I'm at. This is kind of where I've been. And this is kind of where I kind of see myself continuing to go. And just like Moses, I think God comes to us. And I think he says, I've created you for more than just a safe, comfortable life. I've created you more than just routine. There's people all around us that need help. And I'm sending you. So as we begin this series today, I want to take just a few moments of reflection. Go ahead and close your eyes, bow your heads, and just spend a few moments just in prayer, you and God, and just examine am I living my life with open hands? Is my daily prayer, Lord, wherever you lead me, whatever it costs me, I'm going to follow you. That God, with my life, all I want is what you want. I just want to do what you want me to do. I want to say the words that you want me to say. I want to spend my money the way you want me to spend my money. My life belongs to you. I want to live my life with open hands. Or do we more kind of cling on to what's safe and what's comfortable? And just like Moses, when God gives us his invitation, our initial response is, yeah, let's go do it. I'm hesitant about this. Father, I thank you so much for your word, for your timeless truths, that we can look back at this journey that you called Moses on thousands and thousands of years ago and see very similar things to our lives here. God, I pray that you would help me, that you would help us to live life with open hands. It says, God, whatever you want, that's all that we want. Whatever that looks like. Father, we praise you, we worship you, we thank you that you invite us into more than just living for us. We love you, God. It's in Jesus' name.